Ginger, it is so wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Devin. It's really a thrill to be here today.
And Taquoia, it is so great to see you too. Ginger is the founder of Book Harvest. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here really quickly. Ginger is the founder of Book Harvest, an organization that's on a mission to provide ongoing literacy support to families and their children from birth. Taquoia Street is a mom whose sweet daughter Jade was in Book Harvest Book Babies program from birth to age 5. Taquoia has built incredibly upon her experience seeing Jade and working with Jade in that program, and to pilot her own in-home educational initiative. She now serves on Book Harvest board as well. So thank you both so much for joining us. Normally, this is a little bit different than how we'd normally be talking. We're in the midst of a pandemic, so in the interest of keeping everybody safe, we opted not to have these conversations in person, but still give you the opportunity to have live conversations with the people who are making the incredible change and the incredible impact in our community. The organizations that United Way invests in move mountains, and Book Harvest is certainly one of them. I'd be remiss not to point out that they learned yesterday that Book Harvest was recognized as a 2020 Library of Congress Literacy Award winner in the Best Practices category. These awards are coveted, and it recognizes organizations doing exemplary, innovative, and easily replicable work over a sustained period. Book Harvest is one of only 15 organizations from around the world to receive the distinction this year. So congratulations to you guys, Ginger. That is huge. As we continue to go through this, we'll have some questions for Ginger and Taquoia. If you have, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. If you have any burning questions, please feel free to go ahead and drop it in the chat box as you think of them. We'll review the questions at the end and we'll ask them live in real time. So feel free to use that chat box for conversation, for questions, anything that comes to mind. This is very much a participatory conversation. And finally, I do want to touch on, one thing that we all know today, and that it's a tough day for our country, being the 19th anniversary of the September 11th attacks in New York City. We're grateful, very grateful today to be having this conversation with Ginger, because as we stop and remember that tragedy that united us 19 years ago today, we're happy to also be having this having this opportunity to discuss how we're united in building forward momentum for our community. And that forward look to continually strengthen our community is incredibly important. So thank you guys for being here on what is a somber day, for sure. So Ginger, Taquoia, can you introduce yourself? Ginger, tell us a little bit about Book Harvest and its mission. Taquoia, introduce yourself, say hi.
Hi, everybody. Taquoia, do you want to jump in and say anything before I tell a little bit about the origin story of the organization?
Sure, I'll just introduce myself. So good afternoon. It's truly a pleasure and honor being here with you today. My name is Taquoia Street, and I am one of the biggest Book Harvest fans out there. I have a 7-year-old daughter. Her name is Ivory Jade. She wanted me to call her Ivory this year for the first time. So just very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. We're pleased you're here.
And I'm Ginger Young. I had this crazy idea many, many years ago that it made total sense for every child to grow up in a home that was rich with books. And I knew that that wasn't the reality. And so I founded this organization having no idea what I was getting myself into in 2011. So we are now coming up on our 10th birthday, which I can't believe because it's gone, in some ways it's gone so quickly. But I just want to back up to sort of the impetus for this from the very beginning, and just tell you my kind of grounding personally is that when children are processing things, there's always a role for stories and helping them understand. And I think especially right now in the time we're in with gosh knows we are dealing with a whole lot right now as a country. We've got, as Devin just pointed out, a very sad day today, a day of remembrance. We're struggling as a nation about our identity and how we reconcile some original sins that we have not reconciled so far. And we're seeing some really amazing shows of solidarity and support and ongoing commitments to making real change among sectors that were not necessarily at the table years ago or even months ago. We do unfortunately have a whole lot of concern about all of our friends out on the West Coast who are dealing with fires. And it's just it's a tough time. It's a fractious time politically. And I have to say that every time I'm in one of those moments of, oh my gosh, this is a little bit overwhelming, I reach for a story. I did it when I was a kid. And the thing that was so palpable about my childhood, which I really remember, is that every single week, my mom would drive me to the public library. And every single week on the same, I think it was Wednesday afternoon after school, we would get a bag of books. And it was just the norm. It was as normal as the air we breathed. It was more dependable than things like, dinner on the dinner table and going to the grocery store and all the other things you have to do to keep your family's life moving ahead. It was the bedrock. And when I raised my own 3 kids, I brought that commitment to loving books to their experience, so that we were at the library every week, got our bags of books, we were buying books, we were trading books, we were reading books. And I just felt then, watching my own children's development, that there was something in that was essential to children realizing the full potential that they are born with. Every child is born with vast potential. Not every child has vast opportunity. And books can be not an equalizer and a support system in helping every child get closer to being able to realize their dreams and realize their full potential. So in 2011, I said to myself, is there a way that we can imagine that every child can grow up in a book-rich home, a home that has lots and lots of words and vocabulary and stories and all of those things that my kids and I were fortunate enough to grow up having. And it didn't seem at the time like it was that unreachable. It seemed very transactionally possible. And so I started this idea that we were going to ask people to, at the time, it was just me and this crazy idea, ask people to bring their books to me and I would get them into the hands and homes of kids who needed them, thinking it would be kind of a couple of months experiment and we'd be done. And what happened was so striking and so stunning. I ended up with thousands and thousands of books in my garage because people kept bringing me books and they would run book drives without telling me and bring me hundreds or thousands of books. Within 2 weeks of first mentioning this idea to somebody, we had 6,000 books in the garage. Wow. Another 2 weeks later, we had 10,000 books in the garage, and the tidal wave was not showing any signs of stopping. And by the way, it's still not showing signs of stopping today. So all those digital book people who have been concerned about the flow, there's been no evidence that we are hitting capacity of book donations anytime. And so that's a very powerful sign to me that everybody who has had the privilege growing up of access to books understands how powerful and important it is to a child's moral, emotional, social development. Forget all the school stuff, that's there too, but there's so many other things. And that they're willing to step up and share and be a part of the solution to the problem that a whole lot of kids in our country are growing up in homes without any books at all. And we can fix that. So that's a very nice thing to have happened into back in 2011 that became, within a few months, the realization that we could build an organization out of this. We could enlist a whole bunch of volunteers who are ready to do the hard work. And we basically came up with a mission, which is true today, which is to provide an abundance of books and ongoing literacy support to families from birth to ensure that their children can thrive in school and in life. And our vision is that every child has access to books and to information. We have spent these 10 years understanding a couple of things that are quite striking about this. There are some essential co-pilots with us in this who are way more important than anything we can ever do. And I'm talking about parents there. If we don't provide literacy support along with books, we're not doing enough. And that led us to the development of the Book Babies program in 2013. It became clear to me that just bringing books to communities was a great start, but not enough. It was necessary, but not sufficient. And what Taquoia will share with you is really this stunning story of what it looks like to have a child who is born into a home that welcomes language and books and stories and has the accompaniment by some fans, some cheerleaders along the way for 5 years to help them get to kindergarten strong. So we'll get to that a little bit more. I think that, where we are now, to fast forward from 2011 to today, we're now in this very interesting time. We have an organization with a dozen staff members, a budget of $1.3 million. We've given 1.3 million books to children in our community and beyond over the past 10 years. We feel like we're just getting started. The power and the strength of what happens when you provide books to a child and to a family, books where the child can see themselves in the book, they can look at the book and feel affirmed in their identity. They're excited to read a story that feels relevant and high interest. And what we can do to help seed that is the power. We want to make sure we're doing everything we can to create book-rich homes, to turn any place that's a book desert into a book garden, and to be there as a support for parents for whatever they need to make that possible for their kids from birth all along the journey. So what you see here in these photos, there's a photo here of my friend Eli with the book I Like Myself. Eli is a sensationally smart 4-year-old who began visiting us at our laundromat story times many months ago and now has a baby sister. And he is growing up in the most bookish home imaginable. And I would put a whole lot of money on his future. He's going to really do great things in life. So if we think a little bit about our unique approach, I just want to highlight a couple of things that are really worth paying attention to. Everything we do, although I couldn't have said this in the early days, everything we do is driven by science. So we know that what happens in the first 5 years is profoundly important to a child's entire rest of their life. 90% of the brain is developed in the first 5 years. Neurons in the brains of a 1-year-old, the first few months of life, first couple of years of life, they fire at 1 million neurons a second. That window of opportunity to help support prospering and fruitful development, we never get it back later. So if we squander it, we can't go back and recreate it. It's a one-time opportunity. We as a society need to do everything we can to totally nourish those first 5 years. And so the subtitle, I believe, of this talk is Why Public Education Should Start at Birth. Education starts at birth, whether we do anything to support that or not. It's happening, whether we agree with it, act like we agree with it, get on board to provide the supports and nourishment that children and families need. By the time a child gets to kindergarten, so much has been set that we can still continue. Of course, we're going to continue to nourish and support children, but we have this spectacular opportunity in those first 5 years. So our work all starts at birth. We believe that, literacy is alive and well on day one, and we do everything we can to build programs that support that. The second thing that is worth mentioning about our unique approach is that, and I said this before, parents are the secret sauce. They are the brain builders. And again, this is science speaking. They spend more time with their children in those first 5 years than anybody else does. They know them better than anybody else. They are the experts on their children and their unique needs and strengths, and they love them more than anybody else in the world. And we have seen time and time again with Taquoia's entire Book Babies alumni class, the class that came after her, the class after that just graduated. We have parents who are willing to work incredibly hard to give their children everything they need for the best shot in life, and we're here to help. And so we know parents are the secret sauce. And we know we need to do everything we can to lift them up and support them in their spectacular roles as brain builders for their kids. The third thing that's unique about us, which I hope we can spread widely like wildfire to all sorts of other places, is that we lead with joy. And it's something that you may think it's harder to quantify than whether we involve parents and how much we're doing from birth. It's really important to lead with joy. Kids who read and kids who are excited about reading and feel the joy in reading develop the curiosity, the empathy, the vocabulary, the executive function, the social and emotional development to succeed in school and in life. And we know that joy works for families. We see it all the time at Book Harvest. We see it all the time in Book Babies. And so we are on board to do everything we can to help children feel the power of their agency around selecting their own books when they're able to. COVID gives us a unique challenge there, but not normal times. And to saying to them, you should have lots of books at home. In my crazy dreams, every single 5-year-old who's about to start kindergarten has 100 books at home, is going to sleep at night with a bedtime story, and has a stack of books that are their very favorites by their bedside. I don't see why we can't get there. Nothing I've done in these 10 years has led me to think we can't make that happen for every child. So those are kind of the unique approach. It's starting at birth, engaging parents as heavily as we possibly can because they're the key to everything, and leading with joy.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's amazing. I've got a young child at home myself. She's 2.5, and she has a speech delay, which I'm going to acknowledge here really quickly, but she's learned more in terms of speech from us just reading to her than she has from watching Elmo. That's for sure.
The interaction of reading to is brilliant, and that serve and return is not something you get with Elmo, as much as I love Elmo.
Right. Everybody loves that.
Any parent out there, keep reading. And I just want to say a word about Book Babies before Taquoia speaks, because I realized I didn't really give a summary of that one program. We have a portfolio of programs that run from birth to age 10 that support children and families to build home libraries and receive literacy support. The cornerstone, the center of gravity of all of this is our Book Babies program, which is where we enroll families starting at birth. We continue with the journey with them over 5 years, so it's a very longitudinal program with a series of home visits and book provision exercises. So we're bringing in 20 books a year to the home, and we're sitting on their kitchen tables, on their living room sofas, doing literacy coaching, which is really parent-led. So we keep showing up in the home. We are there as their support to help them realize their own literacy goals for the children that they know uniquely well. And once they get to the end of that 5 years, we hold a big old noisy celebratory graduation for the families. And you'll see a photo of that later. And then they go on to kindergarten, and we keep following them to see what we can do to keep helping. But it is a program that is unique in our country. And it is, it's light touch, but also big impact because of the longitudinal aspect of it and the parent-led aspect of it. And I'm a big believer in our second decade, thinking about how we can scale it in ways that could reach a whole lot more communities across our country, because I think it's desperately needed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so this is a great segue to Taquoia and her story. Like we mentioned at the beginning of this, Taquoia's daughter, Ivory Jade, went through the Book Babies program, graduated, and Taquoia learned a lot, not just watching her daughter learn, but learning herself. And Taquoia, I would love it if you could tell us a little bit more about your experience and share your story.
Absolutely. So 2013 is when I was introduced to Book Baby program and the Book Harvest. And basically, we were able to get books every 6 months. I believe it was, every 6 months we were able to get books. And not only the books, but they were able to provide tips and different, let me know about different developmental skills that my child should have that was appropriate for each age level that she was in. And me, as being a first-time parent, I really didn't know too much about the development aspect part of it. I knew that books were good and they were important, and that I should read at an early age, but that was as far as it went. So being able to get that support with the home visitor really opened my eyes and made a world of difference when it came to understanding where she should be as she's developing, and being able to see the books change as she was able to get older. How she started with Hello Baby and Good Night Moon, which she will never let us get rid of this book. We hold on to this. So, and now she's reading those level books, and she loves nonfiction. It's just really been an amazing joy and a big help to me and my family as well. Not only that, but just tips on sensory goals and allowing me to choose goals for her. So being able to think about what type of life and where I see my child, and what are some of the steps that we can take to get there. So checking in and holding me accountable, right, was very needed and great as well. We were also able to get bookshelves. So as you can imagine, we have a lot of books, and that's even as we are donating back, the old books that she doesn't read anymore. We have a ton of books. So they were able to offer bookshelves that were handmade, that Jade actually had a chance to go in and choose a bookshelf that she was very excited about. So that was really good. So just seeing her love of books from a young age up to where we are now has definitely been a learning experience for me. Not only that, but the celebrations and events that Book Harvest, Book Babies had were very good. So we were able to go and have fun with other parents and other kids, get lots of resources. Jade was able to sign up for a library card at a very early age. Like all of those things were really great. We were able to be exposed to the Museum of Life and Science. So we were able to get discounted memberships there so that we can go at any time, which she loves that museum also, by the way. And then as she started to get older, I guess, with the learning experience from Book Harvest and myself, it just didn't stop at my child. So I started receiving tips, and there were meetings and workshops that I was able to attend to help me, which I am very grateful for. I didn't know anything about schools and signing up for pre-K and kindergarten and all of those things. And I was able to get that exposure, to get that, I guess, handheld as I started to make those steps and transitioning into school, which was very helpful. As she started school, it didn't stop there. So I'm thinking, okay, she graduated. This is great. I love this program. And now it's going to be like, oh man, we can't go to Book Harvest anymore. But that wasn't the case. To this day, I still get text messages with tips and things that I can do to enhance her learning that's appropriate for her age. She's still welcome to go to Book Harvest and to choose books, which she loves, by the way. She loves to do that. And I was able to get PFAS training. So that's parent and family advocacy support training. And through that training, wow, I learned so many great things there. As Jade wasn't, going to kindergarten, I joined the PTA because I recognized, hey, literacy starts at home, and it starts with me. And if I can advocate for my child, then I know I can spread that joy and pay it forward and advocate for other children. So I've been the vice president and now president of Jade's school PTA board. And basically through the training that I was able to learn through PFAS, I am able to share that knowledge. So not just keep it for myself, but share that knowledge to other parents who may need it as well. So a couple things that I learned from that training was how to advocate for my child, understanding the school report cards and how to read that, parent-teacher conferences, what type of questions you should ask, understanding IEPs. Devin, you mentioned that your daughter has a speech delay. Well, Jay has an IEP as well for speech. And just being able to understand what that means, and that that's not a label, and that doesn't mean that, she's not getting what she needs, just need a little extra help with some sounds. But just being exposed to that knowledge, I would have never been able to get the level of details and support that I have received by being a part of Book Babies and Book Harvest. I mean, it's just, I can go on and on. So fast forward up until now, Jade is in the second grade now at W.G. Pearson. And in addition to, being in the PTA and coming back to help as much as I can with Book Harvest and Book Babies, I've also started to just step outside the box and think about my goals. Before I had Jade, you wouldn't have been able to ask me what would I be doing, and then this is what I would be doing. But it allowed me to think forward. So in 2019, last summer, I piloted a summer program, and my focus was, I'm coming up with things to continue learning at home. Why not share this with some other families, right? I'm coming up with some good stuff. Like, this is going to be a great summer. So I started a program with 5 of her friends in my home, and we focused on reading comprehension. We focused on math, science experiments, and financial literacy. And it was just a really great experience for me, as well as the participants who were involved. And it's something that I want to build upon. So last December, I received a grant and was able to expand that program this summer. Due to COVID, I had to, change around a few things, of course, and be flexible. So with the help of Book Harvest, donating the books, Book Harvest donated 20 books per child. So that's 30 children, 20 books with my program over the summer. So we were able to still meet for a contactless pickup with books and materials that I put together. We did Zoom meetings for financial literacy lessons, and it's just being able to know that reading and learning as a young age is really impactful for a child. And I mean, we have a science to say that, but it's a whole different story when you can see that for yourself. And I was able to see the advancements that my child has, and want to spread that love and knowledge around, because it starts at home, but it takes a community. And children need the tools, but parents need the tools as well. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Can I quickly add something? I want to say 2 things.
Sure.
It won't surprise anybody listening to this that we asked Taquoia if she would please join our board of directors, because we are so enriched by her leadership. Taquoia, you have so much innate leadership that is just blossoming, and we're learning so much from you. And the other thing is, for those who are surprised that this little local nonprofit got an international award from the Library of Congress, a big reason is one of our letters of support was from Taquoia. And you can see that she is just such a strong example of all the ways that what we are doing to seed a little bit of support system in the beginning has exploded in her case. And Taquoia, when I look at you, I think about force multiplier, force of nature. I mean, you just have done so much beyond your own support of your daughter, Jade, but those ripples and circles beyond. And I can't wait to see where you go with it. We are just so fortunate and deeply grateful to be a part of your community at this point. It's just amazing. So
I appreciate
it. On her.
Thank you so much, Taquoia, for sharing that story. I was blown away when I first learned about the in-home program that you created. I mean, I heard about it a year ago, and I just thought that was so forward thinking. And one thing that really stuck out to me while you were telling your story is, the cliche, which is cliche for a reason, is that it takes a village to raise a child, and how amazing it is that Book Harvest provides the village support, that so many parents don't necessarily have access to. And it's so true. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm gonna move on to the next question. I do want to call attention to the fact that we have about 15 minutes before Q&A. And I know we've got a handful of questions left. And Taquoia, as we ask questions, feel free to jump in too, based on your experience, if you have anything you want to add. Again, total participatory conversation. So Ginger, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Social distancing guidelines recommend that we, don't meet in person, which we referenced at the beginning of this. A lot of the work that Book Harvest does facilitates these in-person conversations and interactions with the parents and with the children. How is your organization shifting to support kids virtually right now?
Great question, and one that we really hit the ground running on figuring out on March 13th, which I think every nonprofit in our country has seared in their brain, or at least in our community, because that was the day everything became clear in terms of school shutdowns and other things. It has been quite an adventure. I will say that I think crisis accelerates innovation. And so we've really been able to lean into our innovative culture that has served us well for 10 years to figure this out. We are not nearly done figuring it out. We hope that we're still in the process when it comes to a resolution and we can go back to some hybrid business as usual. But what we did was we pulled all of our programs that meant we were having story times in the laundromats and the other places where we were, which broke our hearts. But we instantly began planning for the launch of a rapid response center. Those of you who have visited us know that we're located in Rockwood Shopping Center in Durham in this wonderful headquarters location that is super fun and lively and friendly. And we were fortunate to be able to grab the space next to it, a 6,000 square foot space immediately adjacent to our 4,000 square foot headquarters, and launch this rapid response center, which does a couple of things. It gives us the chance to have a tiny group of volunteers in there processing books and doing the work spread way out. It gives us a chance to bring in lots of books that we need to be pushing back out to the community as quickly as we can. And it gives us a sense of a sort of a command center around COVID response. And so we did launch this on June 1st. We spent the month of May demoing some of the work that would be going on out of it, in particular working with Durham Feast and Durham Public Schools to get books to kids through a program that ran through the month of May under the amazing leadership of the Durham Public Schools Foundation. So as of June 1st, what we had was a response that we thought was for the summer. If you saw that sign today, you'd see that we've replaced summer 2020 with a blue box that says fall 2020 because we are not at the end of this journey. Back in May, I kind of naively thought maybe we would be. I was wrong. And so this Rapid Response Center will be with us as long as we need it to be to serve kids with best practices around safety. And there's two things going on based out of this center of gravity. One is ample book provision. And we set ourselves a goal when COVID started that we would find a way, without knowing how, that we're going to get 75,000 books out to kids to try and help bridge this disruption in educational learning by the end of summer. We actually managed to get 83,000 books out, and it took a whole lot of work to figure out what the mechanisms would be. We were building brand new systems and frameworks to do that because of the restrictions of COVID. So we ended up with two programs that are still continuing today that are really the core of this whole thing. One is called Grab and Go Books. It's where we have bags of age-appropriate books ready for families to pick up. We have rapid response grab and go hours 5 days a week. We're about to scale it back to 2 days a week, but go longer because once school started, we realized people weren't coming on Monday and Tuesday, but they were all coming on Wednesday, which is a day that people have to get work done. It's called Wellness Wednesdays. So we are, volunteers are in the office waiting for somebody to drive up. If you've visited any stores lately and done it this way, you'll be able to relate to this. You drive up, you call the number, you say, I'm out front. They bring your order out, but when you call and say, I'm out front, we ask the question, how old are your kids? And if you say you have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, we bring out 2 bags of books. You pop your trunk, we put them in, and you take them home. We let all of our families know they can come as often as they want. We love repeat customers. Because the kids aren't selecting their own books, it's a little hit or miss about whether they come away with a book that is their new favorite book, which is always our goal, to help them find their new favorite book. We're a little bit restrained in that, unfortunately, but we're going to do our best to keep giving them plenty of books so they can find their favorites and not have to sort of lose their enthusiasm for reading. The entire slogan of the Rapid Response Center and Grab and Go Books is keep learning alive, specifically keep learning alive with books. The second thing that's going on out of Rapid Response Center is the staging for our Well-Fed, Well-Read program, where we are basically working with existing channels that provides food to families and children, and we're showing up in those places with books. So if you're getting well-fed, we want you to be well-read too. So we just keep showing up with books in these places where the food provision is happening. We hope to expand that over time. I think that that's something that should stay in our toolkit long after COVID is resolved. And it's giving us a great chance to do a demonstration pilot in real time to figure out how to do it. So we're very excited about that. The other rapid response adaptation to COVID has been that, as you can imagine, the home visits and book babies could not continue after March 16th. And so we spent one day, what normally might have taken us 2 years to write a protocol around virtual home visiting. We spent one day figuring out what it meant to take our home visit manual, take our home visit protocols and turn them into a virtual interaction with families. We wrote that protocol on March 13th. We launched it on March 16th. I was incredibly proud of our team for their ability to move swiftly with a lot of competence and a lot of sensitivity about how to do it well. Every week, they're refining it to make it better and more effective. And the families have stayed with us through this crazy journey and are really doing well with their kids during this time of virtual home visits. So I'm proud of everybody. Again, I think after COVID ends, we'll probably end up with a hybrid where families get to choose that some of their home visits could be virtual if they prefer that. There's an awful lot of moms in their early 20s who probably prefer that to in-person. People like me prefer in-person, but for us to be able to meet them where they are with the delivery mechanisms they want is the goal. And so COVID's giving us a silver lining of figuring that out. So that's the really big news about how we've adapted to COVID. We know that we're not clearly anywhere close to the end of this journey, so we're going to stay the course with this just as long as we need to. And it's, by the way, if I can just give a shout out to United Way, we've been a partner with United Way since 2014 when we first got a grant to run a collaborative working group called Close the Gap that really helped us accelerate our thinking around book provision and getting to saturation in a community. And United Way has been such an essential partner in this work of COVID response. You can see on this Rapid Response Center slide that there are really four main collaborators and co-pilots, and United Way is one of them. And we are deeply grateful for our long-term relationship with you all, which is many years now, and for the flexibility and agility that you have brought to this challenge and your entire community to help figure out what we on the front lines need to do to help mitigate the enormous toll that this time is taking on families. Mm-hmm. So very proud of that partnership and very grateful.
Well, we're so grateful for the incredible work that y'all do in the community, and what you just described is just the iceberg, and anybody who is interested in learning more about Book Harvest's work, you can go to their website, which is Ginger, correct me if I'm wrong, is it bookharvestnc.org?
That's correct.
Fantastic. Okay, good. Didn't have time to pull up a tab and check. So we have two more questions I just want to run through really quickly. There are things that happen in every person's life that alters life the way we know it. 9/11, 19 years ago, was one of them. And we knew as it was happening in real time that the world was going to be different. And the COVID-19 pandemic is another. With every life-altering event, there has to be helpers that do the hard work needed to get back on track. And so we're at the moment now in this pandemic, knowing that the disparities that we've seen increase during the pandemic are going to continue to increase. And that without organizations and nonprofits and helpers like Book Harvest, the gaps are going to widen. So I wanted to ask you, what role do you envision Book Harvest playing in strengthening the triangle following the pandemic, and how are year-round funds from United Way donors important to that?
So this question of our role after COVID-19 into our second decade, which we're starting in January, is the thing that keeps me up at night. And it's really important because I think that there's nothing like a pandemic to give you permission to be bold and be clear about what your role can be in creating the world that all of our children deserve. And so as I think about what will endure and what we will be doing after COVID, there are a couple of things that just are in neon, and they're not new. They're a continuation of where we've been, but I am aware of their essential contribution to the world we want for our kids like never before. One is that we absolutely have to keep starting at birth and being very invested in those first 5 years for every child and every parent we can reach. That is the great sort of Wild West frontier. Once a child gets to kindergarten, there are systems in place to receive them and to provide supports to them. Those first 5 years, it's really tough for parents to know how to navigate that time. We want to make it incredibly easy, customer friendly, and driven by their wishes and their unique needs and desires. So leaning into those first 5 years, even more than we already have, is right up there. The other is that we need to get much more strategic about book abundance and about making sure that wherever there is a book desert, we can identify it, we can create a strategy for targeting it, and turn it into a book garden. we know that even as we've given 1.3 million books to families in this first 10 years, there are still children in our community who don't have books. We got to figure out who those kids are, how we can reach them, how we can make it accessible and easy for them, how we can infiltrate informal learning spaces, places like the laundromat, the barbershop, the health clinic, the social service agency, and make it so that everywhere families go in their everyday lives, there is easy access to high quality books that are what we call mirrors and windows, books that reflect children's lives and their identities and let them see worlds beyond their own, and that we are relentless in that pursuit. That is the goal. It's no different than before COVID, but we are going to be dealing with whole societies that have really major chasms that have evolved because of this horrible time we're in. And so we have to step up our game and work much harder than we've ever worked before to figure out how to provide book abundance and an accompaniment model that starts at birth and stays the course. And I will say that the funds from United Way are catalytic is too minor a word. I don't know what the word is because I haven't come up with a vocabulary to reflect the power of what you all have done for us and what United Way and its campaign communities have done for us. We have been so fortunate to have in you a partner who provides us with funds where we can do the innovative work. We can iterate, we can fail, we can try things out and acknowledge when they don't work and do it better the next time. We can be transparent about that. We're not just trying to impress you, we're being honest and candid. There is a really strong, I'm always struck by this feeling that, why is it in our society, 4 out of 5 kids from low-income households are not reading proficiently in 3rd grade? That is a terrible, that's a pandemic. And we need to treat it like a house on fire. And we've got to be super innovative in the ways we come up with answers and solutions. We haven't figured it out yet. Nobody has. And anything those of us who are game for a challenge can do is appropriate to do in conjunction with parents and out of respect for parents. The funding to do that is the hardest funding to get because many funders want to see deliverables. They want to see a 1-year time frame. What we're trying to do is a completely different paradigm than what currently exists. And so United Way has been certainly catalytic, has provided the transformative support base, the foundation for us to be able to get deep into that work and to dream big about what we can do in our second decade, because our kids deserve no less.
Absolutely. Our lofty mission is to eradicate poverty and increase social mobility. And the status quo is keeping our community afloat and keeping people where they are, but it's the innovative solutions that will drive us forward, that will achieve that mission. And we're so grateful to have partners like you who are constantly focused on innovating, on looking for what the next step is, what's going to move the needle, what's going to drive the actual change. So thank you for sharing all of that. The last question that I have is, normally we're in the middle of workplace giving campaign season, which is where local companies and their employees will fundraise for United Way because of the impact that it creates, like, what you've been describing. And normally, people love to volunteer. They love to get hands-on. They love to meet the founders of the organizations. They love to help sort books. And frankly, it's not safe in many settings right now to do that. So how can volunteers best support Book Harvest right now? And what does a volunteer opportunity look like for you guys?
There are things volunteers can do. I'm excited to share. I wouldn't have necessarily known that in April when I was really trying to figure it out. But here's what I want to point to: 4 things that volunteers can do. And any campaign partner who wants to learn more, reach out to me. My email is ginger@bookharvestnc.org, and I will talk to anybody about customizing volunteer opportunities to your needs, because we're all about creating this campaign that is an evergreen campaign to make sure we solve this problem. It takes everybody. So the 4 things are, you can run a book drive. It's so fun and easy to do during COVID because we're all feeling isolated. And I've had some remarkable stories of teenagers and people in their workplace who will say, I'm going to run a book drive, which means basically you're sitting at home at your computer. You take the toolkit and template that's on our website about how to run a book drive. You spend a little time clicking with your mouse. You come up with branded materials about running a book drive. You could send it out to your neighborhood, put a a bin on your front porch and watch the books come pouring in, bring them to us, and we will get them into the hands and homes of kids who need them. It's super affirming and fun to run a book drive. You can also run a book drive in your own home, which means cleaning off your shelves if you've got young children. There may be books they're done with that have plenty of life left in them. We need those books. Books are our currency, and we are super passionate about making sure everybody knows that we need books. So that's one thing, is run a book drive. The second thing is we are actually now, as you can see in this photo, deploying small numbers of carefully masked volunteers using strict protocols to do a couple of things: to sort the books in our office, in our Rapid Response Center, and to provide the books to families through Grab and Go and Well Fed, Well Read. So if anybody's interested in being added to that short list of volunteers who are doing that, email me at ginger@bookharvestnc.org. I'll get you into the list and you will receive notifications for signups. It's something we probably prefer somebody to do on a regular basis because we need to train them. It's protocol driven. If it's a one-time thing, it's probably not worth your time or ours to do it for just a couple of hours. But I'm happy to let you demo it and see if it's so irresistible that you want to keep coming back, because that's often what happens. Our volunteers feel the joy just like our kids do. It's a lot of fun. The third thing is share our story. Tell your friends we're out there. We're out to close the book gap. We're out to create book gardens everywhere we go. We're out to spread this gospel far and wide across our country. If you have friends who care about literacy, who care about kids' success, we want them to know about us. And so please spread the word. You know, the informal word of mouth is so much better than anything I can do in marketing to get people to understand that we're there. So we need all these ambassadors out there who believe in what we're doing. And the fourth thing is very simple. Sign up on our website to receive our monthly e-newsletter. That's where we blast out the volunteer opportunities. I'm hoping that fairly soon we're going to see another level of volunteering open up where people can sort books in our office in more sort of relaxed ways. I'm not sure when that will happen, but we're going to spread the word to our newsletter subscribers and on our social media. So you can also join our Facebook page as soon as we're able to. So if you sign up, you're going to be the first to hear. And we're going to have a lot of fun with this as we come out of COVID and into a place of more connectivity with our families and with our volunteers.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. So a reminder for anybody who didn't hear it at the beginning of this session, we've got about 8 minutes for Q&A. So feel free to drop any questions you have into the chat. We do have the first one is from David, which, by the way, there are a bunch of accolades in there too. People are really excited about both the passion that you guys bring to, literacy, to books, to the mission of Book Harvest. David asked, what type of data are you collecting on books, users, ages, and geography of distribution? Is there anything interesting you can share there too? I'd be curious.
We are collecting the data. What we haven't, and we've got a mountain of data from Book Babies, which is a program that now has about 320 families enrolled and about 80 alums, and it also has a location in Winston-Salem. So that's a different batch of data because it's families we know well. We visit them every 4 months. We collect new data, so we have a longitudinal snapshot that can be put together, and we can look for hidden patterns that may be useful in informing our programs. And we've done some with that, but as with all nonprofits, there's always things on the to-do list you don't quite get to because you're strapped and you're trying very hard to meet your core mission first and foremost. So that will continue to be mined. We are collecting information on the ages of the kids and where they're coming from in Grab and Go and Well Fed, Well Read. Less about Well Fed, Well Read because we're really piggybacking onto other systems. But with Grab and Go, we absolutely are. What we are finding, and this is early, but we'll write reports on this pretty soon, I think, that reveal all this, is that we've got people coming with 1-year-olds and 17-year-olds. We've got people coming in SUVs and by bus. We've got people coming multiple times over a month. And I think that what it says to me is at a time when learning is massively disrupted and people are isolated, there's a real hunger across all socioeconomic, racial, age categories for a good story and for the solace and the anxiety relief it can bring and for the fresh new aspects of curiosity that books can bring to children. We are really delighted by how many of our families who come pick up books also bring us books to donate, because in the end, this is all about sharing. This is not about those who have giving to those who have not. We want everybody to have and everybody to share. And Grab and Go has us really seeing that loop. that beautiful cycle up close since June, and we're loving it. Taquoia, do you have anything to add to that? I feel like you are, you're one of these extreme users, as am I, but I want to see if I'm missing anything that would inform that question.
I don't think you're missing anything. That will be what I would say as well. I know with the 30 families that 29 families that I was able to connect with over the summer, really enjoyed the books that they were receiving. And when I did my kind of survey at the end of my program this summer, a lot, like everyone talked about how one of their favorite parts were the books. Like, oh, my child is so excited to receive these books. I met with each family one time per month, and they were so excited, when time came to get new books from Book Harvest. And then some of those families were also going to the grab and go sites as well.
Ginger, if I could that's great, Taquoia. If I could just focus my question a little bit more, you talked about book deserts. And how do you grab the information and the data to know exactly where those are so that you can target those efforts?
So what I realized, especially with COVID, but I've been thinking about it before, is that we don't have a good tool for knowing where the deserts are, where the book access points are. And I reached out starting in April to the best experts in the country to ask that question. What is the tool we can use to map book deserts and run with that information? Nothing exists. So we are in the midst of working with Duke students or Duke graduates who came to us through DC to try and create a beta of a tool. I don't know where it's going to go. We're early, but we're aware that absent just, biking every block of the community and looking for book access points and looking for where families don't have books, we aren't going to know that info. So we need to come up with a better mechanism and tool for being diagnostic about it. And I'm hopeful that by January, we're going to know more about whether that is something that we can actually create. So stay tuned. It's one of the it's one of the beta tests of things that we don't yet know. It may fade away and never go anywhere, but it may become the most important tool we have to saturate all of Durham, and potentially other communities could take it to saturate their own challenges and come up with an answer. We need to be more strategic, all of us do, in addressing the gaps, because the gaps are getting bigger, they're growing into chasms, and that is not okay. Kids need the supports to thrive, and they are all, as I said earlier on, they're born with vast potential. It's up to us to help unlock that. We lack some tools to be able to know where we need to be doing the most important work.
Thank you.
David, stay tuned. I may be tapping you for some ideas about this.
Great.
So one more question from me. As a book lover, I'm always curious, and I'm probably going to write this down. But Ginger and Taquoia, what book are you reading right now? Or books?
Wait, I'm going to grab mine. I'm reading this. It's called Ending Book Hunger. It's a book that came out last year. It's really quite good. I do actually read fiction. The other thing I'm reading, Taquoia, I'll be quick, is this, because I'm so puzzled by why children love this book so much. I decided I better understand it more than just knowing it's impressive. So these are my two. They're nice counterparts to each other, because this one's about high interest books. This is the high interest book of all time from our experience. So that's me. Taquoia, what about you?
Right to the source.
I am reading this book, The Artist's Escape. Brand new book, just hit Amazon a couple weeks ago. I know the author, brilliant artist. So I'm an actress too. So this is a really good book about artistry. And I'm reading this other book here, Melanin, What Makes Black People Black. So I'm just doing a little bit of reading here and there.
Awesome.
I love this. I am reading Maybe You Should Talk to Somebody by Lori Gottlieb, which is an autobiography about a therapist in Los Angeles and her experience going to a therapist. It's quite fascinating. So thank you to everybody who joined us today. Thank you, Taquoia. Thank you, Ginger. You both are amazing. And we so appreciate you taking an hour out of your day to share more, to share your passion, to share your ideas. If you enjoyed today's session, we have more every Friday right now up until December. So if you want to go to unitedwaytriangle.org/events, you'll see them there. Next week, we're talking to 3 organizations who have been integral in pivoting to support the community during the pandemic. And then on the 25th, we'll be speaking with TROSA, which is an in-house substance use and mental health treatment center in Durham, about mental health, substance use disorders, the stigmas, the solutions, and the dreams. So thank you, everybody. We hope you have a very great weekend, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Devin.
Thank you.